What's going on, guys? So, got a customer here who wants their fan raised up. And it's a very simple job. So, see how I raise this fan up in a matter of minutes. Okay, so what's the first thing we have to do? We have to determine the power is off this fan, right? Because there's no on-off switch here. So, what we're going to do is we're going to find out where the power comes from. Let me show you. All modern ceiling fans now are almost exclusively controlled by a handheld remote, okay? But this doesn't turn the power on and off. There's also going to be a switch next to it, so you want to make sure that switch is off. However, there could be multiple switches. There could be a switch for the fan and a switch for the light. Let's see. Okay, in this case, when I turn the light on, the fan switch on, I see both operating. I see the fan going on and the light going on. So if I turn off this switch, let me turn the camera around. If I turn off this switch that's labeled fan and light, both go off. So because I've seen two switches here, a lot of times this could be the light and this could be the fan. All right, so you want to be careful. But obviously because they're using this remote control, this is the main override switch. So if I turn that on, you can see how the light went on, the fan went on, and the light went on. So we're going to shut that switch off, and then we're going to do a test up in this canopy. Okay, so we're going to go up, and the first thing, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this bar, because the customer is saying that this bar is way too low. So how are we going to remove the bar? First thing we need to do is remove this canopy. How do we do that? Well, this is just a little cover piece, and if I spin the cover piece, it'll drop down, and then we need to loosen up these two screws. So this screw will get completely removed on this side. And then this one can just be loosened, which I already loosened, and then this is just a little turn, and this canopy will come down. Okay. So if we look at it, it looks like a quagmire of wiring. It's very simple. It looks more complex than it is. So basically, this device right here is the receiver from the transmitter on the wall. So the transmitter is working wirelessly, and it's controlling the blue, which is the light, and the black, which is the fan. So we're going to remove that. I'm going to pull this ball off. Okay, as you can see, this little housing just pulled right out from this opening here. I didn't remove any wire nuts yet. But now I'll be able to take this fan and lift it up and bring it down. So I'm going to disconnect my feed wires here. Now I notice a red wire here. That means that they used a 3-wire. Okay, now where is the black wire? Now the black wire could be left up inside of the hole. Let's see if it's here. It might be here, and it might be used as a spare. This is the ground. Hold on. Okay, just as I guessed, there is a black wire here and they didn't use it. Okay, now why did they do this? They did this actually the correct way. The electrician knew to run a 14-3 wire. One controls the fan and one can control the light. But in this case, because of this device, it's not needed. This device internally will control via wirelessly the fan and the light. So we have a spare up in here, and we're just going to tuck it back in when we're done. So I was just curious, and here it is. So we've got our one hot that's not used. We have our ground, we have our neutral, and then we have the other hot from the 3-wire, because 14-3 will have a white, a red, a black, and a ground inside. Okay, so we've safely removed all the feeder conductors. We've confirmed that power is off with a voltmeter. Here's the ground that's part of the house. This is going to stay here. We're just going to be picking this up, and I'm going to be handing it to my associate here that's helping me. So if I lift it up, the whole assembly will come out, leaving that, and then I can pass this. You got it? Okay, great. All right, so now this will all... So now we've got in a nice workspace, we've got the fixture sitting here. I'm going to have to remove this so that I can remove this post. Okay, so how are we going to take this post out? Well, we have a secondary canopy here, okay? Because this post is attached to the fan housing. So So what we have to do is remove this canopy, and we've got a couple screws here. So this looks like an Allen. So we have two Allen wrenches, an Allen, actually only one. So let me loosen that up and move this cover up out of the way. So we have an Allen right here, and I'm not sure what the actual size is, but I found what the size was. Trial and error. Obviously, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so we're going to be turning to the left. And this, you can see how this just slides right up. Now, we can see what's underneath it here. So we're going to have this clevis, this cotter pin. We're going to pull out the clevis pin, and we're going to pull that pin completely out. And then we're just going to loosen these screws. Actually, they're not even been tightened. The original installer didn't tighten those screws. Okay, so now this whole assembly will come out. Okay, now I will have to use this. This is a different type of setup than what was in the room. I'll show you that. So I will have to take off that piece that was on the ceiling, and I'm going to replace it with that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these screws so I can take this piece off. Now we need to put on this piece here. So this piece is going to go on first. So what we're going to do is, and we can trim this back, but try not to cut this back, guys. Try to keep this long, because that way if you ever want to convert this back to hanging, lower, you don't have to splice it. So it's important that you don't cut any of that unless you absolutely have to. In fact, when this came out of the box, I'm sure this was much longer, because these are usually up to 48 inches, so 4 feet. So the original installer actually cut that, which is fine, but try to keep it as long as you can. So I'm going to feed the 3 wires through. Again, I've got my neutral, my light, and my fan. Now this is going to sit down inside of here, and I'm going to line up the hole. It's a really snug fit. Now this is a supplementary piece, so it's good that the owner was able to get the right piece. So whoever owns this house is very smart. Because normally we would get here and it's the wrong piece. So I see how that lines up. I'm going to push the power feeds out of the way so that I can get through it, which I did. All right, so this isn't pinched. That's why you have this protection here. So now I have this is all the weight is bearing off of this. So now I can spin this around and put the little clevis pin in right here. There's a small hole in the end of it. Okay, I can turn the hole towards me. I can put this in. Okay, just like that. I like to go a little bit further. You can leave it in that spot, or you can push it a little bit further in. I like to do that, okay? That's not going anywhere. But now we need to tighten up these screws where the first electrician didn't do. Now, these have what they call jam nuts on them. Can you see that? I don't know if you can get close enough. That's a jam nut. See how I'm spinning that nut on the screw? So you want to tighten these screws up, and then you can do a secondary tightening by jamming the screw to keep it from vibrating loose. So let's try that. So we're going to tighten up these screws. One side I'm just going to snug it. I'm not bringing it home yet because I want it to be square. I don't want it to be on an angle. Okay, so I got that. Now I can tighten up this one more. And now I can tighten up that one. And now what I'm going to do is, of course, I don't have all my tools here. I'll come back, but I'm going to get a wrench, and I'm going to tighten up these 2 jam nuts. All right, so now what I've done is I've removed the bar, put on this support piece, tightened it up, tightened my jam nuts up, make sure my clevis pin is in. Now I'm going to put this cover on. Now this cover just kind of hangs on there. It doesn't really get attached. It's kind of just friction. And again, we want to make sure that our opening does not block our rotation for our fan switch. Okay? And it's going to just sit just like that. It doesn't attach. It will move a little bit, but what will hold it down is when I mount the cover on top of it. Okay? So now I'm going to take my lead wires and I'm going to put them through. I'm going to put them through here. I'm going to line up these 4 screws and put them on. I'll see you in a minute. So
this is what made that solid. If you remember before, this was loose and kind of moving, but now that I put the top on and these 4 screws, this is really solid. So this is brought home, bringing it home, meaning it's all the way. This isn't going anywhere. But now we have an issue. The issue becomes, because we are not using 2 switches, we're not using the individual fan switch and light switch, we are using this device, right, the wireless device. And in the previous installation, this actually went up into the canopy, if you recalled, right? Went up inside the canopy, right? And then the canopy just went up over top of it. Well, this is different. We're not going to have any post. This is now going to become our new canopy. So we need to actually install this now, wire it in now, leave the 2 feed wires sticking out, but we have to make sure that this will fit in here neatly and out of the way and not hinder with anything and still allow for a safe installation. I'll show you that in a minute. If you notice, guys, I did not cut this extra wire off. I know that I can neatly curl this wire up into the canopy and still have enough room for this to neatly fit down. And you can see, you connect. Now let me show you how I do a connection. I know it's as simple as a wire nut. What you don't want to do is you don't want to just hold both wires up like this and put a wire nut on it. Would it work? Yes, it would work. But what does the professional do, the workman do? They actually twist the wires together, okay? We're going to make what they call a mechanical connection. Mechanical connection first, and then I'm going to put my wire nut on second. I'm going to bring it home. I'm actually going to go as far as it'll go, and that's a good connection. Same with this one. Let me show you another one. And guys, I know this is vanilla ice cream stuff. This video is not for the experts. This video is for the new people that want to get into the electrical trade and they just want to see behind the scenes how they do things. So if you're a helper out there and you study this video, as simple as it sounds, this could make you more money with your boss. All right, so again, we're going to put the 2 wires together. They're going to be even, and now I'm going to make a mechanical connection, and I'm going to spin it around. And then I'm going to put my wire nut on it. So a mechanical connection and then the wire nut. Now if I wanted to make another step, I could put tape around these, but I'm not going to do that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten my wire out. Now I think most amateurs, what would you have done, guys? You'd have cut it right here, right? You'd have cut it here to make less wire, but that's an amateur move. So the professional way to do it is leave the length, and what I'm going to do is just curl it up in a little nice loop, nice loop. Now this is the antenna, okay? So we could either leave the antenna sticking out to give us more range, but since we're in a smaller room, we don't need a lot of range. It should be fine, just tucked in. And also, if we have multiple fans in the house, and we don't want the remote to control different fans, that's what these dip switches are for. So you could actually change this dip switch if you have multiple fans. And that way, this remote will only work this one. All right. That being said, we're going to tuck that wire in neat. And we're going to put the canopy wireless adapter in, nice and neat. You can see how low that is. Now, here's my feed wires going out, right? I don't need the black and the red with this. Because, again, I just need a single feed to this. This device will control it. Now, I can't put this on now, but I'm going to show you what it looks like while I'm in a down position. So, basically, this is going to be attached to the ceiling. These wires will poke through. I'll attach all my grounds. Here's my captive screw, and here's my captive screw. So I'm going to go look for the opening for the captive screws, and I'm going to push it down in, okay? And then I'm going to turn it, all right? And then I'll add the other screws. But again, before I do that, I have to make sure that the wire nut is on. So let's go into the room, let's attach this place, and let's get ready to hang this fan. This guy has to go, and this is simple. It's just 2 screws holding this up, and this we don't need anymore, and we're going to replace that with this. So we're going to actually put this on right now. Okay, this electrician actually did a nice job all the way around. So what he has here is a pancake box. So the pancake box, you can see, is very shallow, and then it gets deep here. What does that mean? That means that the rafter is running this way. Okay, so when he originally wired this house, he just attached this box in the center of the room right over the rafter, or he had to add a rafter to get it in the center of the room or some sort of support. And he put these screws in. So this screw and this screw is what's holding it in the box. Now I'm going to be removing this screw. So he used long wood screws right up into the rafter, which is a very good and strong support. The only thing I would have liked to see is a washer. A small number 8 washer would have been nice than this drywall screw. But it's still a very good install. This is the fender washer I was referring to. All right, so I already put one underneath that one. I'm going to put that one under the second one. I got to put the phone down to do that. Okay, so now that we have our mounting plate firmly attached with nice wood screws with these washers and this approved ceiling fan box, all we have penetrating now is the hot wire, which in this case was the red. The black wasn't used. We tucked that up. Our neutral wire and our ground wire. So we're going to attach our grounds, and then we're going to hang the fan off of this clip right here so we could wire it. Let me show you. Okay, so what I've done is I've hung the whole fan off this hook here. This gives me room to do work on it. So on the top is still all my original wiring, and now I need to connect these wires with the feed wires. And then once I do that, then I can remove it from the hook and push it up. And remember the captive screws? I'm going to put these out a little bit, and we're going to just hang the fan back. Stay tuned. Okay, so I've connected the wires. I took it off the hook, and I put it on these 2 captive screws. Okay, now I'm going to, before I tighten these guys, I'm going to put the screws on these 2 sides, and then I'll tighten up the 4. And then we're ready to fire it up. Okay, and there you go. Now, no ceiling is perfect, okay? And remember those pads that we talked about? So there is a small gap here, but you'd never see that from down below. But it's very strong, it's very sturdy. So now what I have to do left is wipe it off. And let's talk about how much this job you should charge to your customer if you do this job. Let's talk about some estimating and how much I would charge to do this. Stand by. Okay. This is the fun part. We're going to turn it on. And voila. So, how much would we charge for a job like this? How much would you charge to come to someone's house, remove that kit, and put back up? It's not as easy as it looks. Number one, we got lucky because the customer knew what they were doing and bought the right kit. A lot of times if you show up and a customer wants to hire you to do this job, they might not have the right parts and you're forced to come back at another time. So you need to have a trip charge and an hourly charge. But you don't charge this by the hour. You don't say, oh, this is $100 an hour, because we work for $100 an hour. We're licensed electricians in the United States. Our minimum rates are $100 an hour. So let's talk about that. Let me clean up, and we're going to talk about how much this job should cost. Okay, so what should we charge a customer for that? All right, well, we have a trip charge. So if you're in your neighborhood, you should have a minimum of $159 trip charge. $159 just for you to show up to the property and maybe do 25 minutes, 15 to 25 minutes worth of work. Anything over that would, become an additional charge. In fact, $259 should be your minimum, right? That way you show up, you can do small work for someone, it's $259. Well, this is a job, this is a task. So, I would say the minimum billing would be 4 hours. Well, since this job is only going to take you an hour or two, by the time you get there, you get set up, you get your tools, you collect your money. So I'm going to say that a safe, fair price for this job would be $400, okay? Because that's going to make my $400 an hour goal that I want to make for myself. And it's going to give me time to get to the next job, because remember, even though you didn't work here 4 hours, you spent 4 hours of your time. You got up out of the shop, You got in your van, you got everything going, you came in, you covered your feet up, you put something on the ground, you did the job, you build. Now you got to go on to the next job. So in total, that could easily be 4 hours. So I would say $400 for this job plus sales tax would be a very fair price. Now, I know some of you are going to say, oh, $400. Well, two things, two answers to you guys. Then do it yourself. Don't hire an expert, okay? And don't complain if you have a problem. And realize all the expenses and how expensive it is out there. So, we're licensed electricians, and I pay you for all this expensive stuff out there now with the rising inflation, trying to take my kids out to eat and just surviving. Well, now it's time for you to pay me, a licensed electrician doing a job very well done. Guys, I'm sorry it was such a basic, plain, vanilla ice cream job, but you know what? All you pros out there, all you guys at my level, I know you're not even going to watch this video. I'm making videos for the new guys, okay? I don't need to make videos for veterans. You guys are even better than me. See you on the next one.